right, let's get it started. Okay, how does this work? Hey, what's going on, everybody? I just thought I'd, do a little live stream. This is my first live stream, so if I suck, just let me know because, So someone should make a video like this, but for learning core programming foundational stuff, like why loops and loops and iteration is so important, as well as control flow and stuff like that. Oh yeah, definitely. I'm trying to figure out what kind of stuff that I should do in my future videos. Recently, I've been in a couple of podcasts and stuff, trying to figure out what exactly what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to be releasing a podcast later today I did with one of my friends. Yo, what's going on, Tim? Hey guys, how's it going? So I thought, so I'm just trying to figure out like what kind of stuff that I want to do. So that's why I kind of been MIA. Plus, I had a whole bunch of stuff that was going on. I started a whole bunch of freelance projects. And I recently finished that up. I started doing some stuff with Amazon and, work was really busy, but now I'm going to be back to making YouTube videos. I also broke my tripod, and I was reluctant to get a new one, so I've been kind of holding off on that for a little while. But now we should be good. Yeah, so basically in this I guess live stream, my first live stream, oh my god, we're going to be talking about like the basic core principles of like UI design, UX design, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, man. Let's see. All right, so let's go into it. So, like, there are a whole bunch of things that go. There are a whole bunch of things that go into UI UX design. And basically, if you don't know what UI UX is, it's user interaction and user experience. So yeah, haha, same here, man. Dev life is so time consuming. Yeah. All right, good. Well, then this stuff will definitely help you because there's way more to web development. What's going on, Slayer? How's it going? There's more stuff that goes on with web development than there is stuff that just making a website using HTML and CSS. There's a whole bunch of like design stuff that goes into it too, especially if you're applying to be a front-end developer. So I usually advise people that are learning it to learn a little bit about UI UX, learn a little bit about design. And basically UI design kind of has its like basic principles, and it's kind of like once you like spread out into other areas of like design or other things like this, these 5 tips will principles will kind of just help in general. So like when I do all of my video editing, when I do all of my Photoshop editing, all of these principles still apply. So basically, I guess the first principle or tip I want to talk about is I guess clarity. So basically, every time you go onto a website, you want it to be 100% clear what is going on inside of your web application or your website. You want it to be really, really simple and really, really clear on how a user could go from point A to point B. So basically, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you should think about, if a user was to take an action, what just happened? The next thing you would want to think about is like, okay, where are they on the page? Can they get to the next page in an easy fashion? Or is it kind of held up with a whole bunch of animations or little things like that? So then after you do that, you can kind of go through like, if I was on this page, what would I want it to do? Because a lot of people don't think about that stuff. And basically what you want to do is, follow my patented method, keep it sleek but simple, and make sure that the flow for a user going into your website is very, very simple. And I can't break this down because you're not aiming to be like a minimalist of some sort. You're not aiming to be a minimalist, but you're just kind of trying to make it like really, really simple. Hey, Nikki, how's it going? So on to the next one. So the next one is flexibility. So if you guys don't know about about mobile development, basically you can use things like media queries. You can use CSS frameworks like Bootstrap. There's a whole bunch of boilerplates out there that allow you to create your website in a way that can be used on multiple screens. So like, for example, if I was to go to, like, for example, my website, I'm just going to go onto a new tab. So, all right, you have my website with all of my different stuff. If I was to go into use the Chrome Dev Tools and break it down, and let's go into the responsive view, you would see that, oh, oops, hit the wrong button. I did not mean to do that. I meant to do that. You can see that on every different device, you have it looks different on every device. So you have the S3, you have laptops, you have iPads, iPad Pro, how this is how it's going to look. And I've customized it for everything. You see how the menu bar shrinks down because a user is going to probably be focusing on what's on the screen rather than the navigation bar. But then when you go back up to the top, it'll go back to where it was originally. And basically, for mobile development, you got to think about how you can go into every situation. So this is bugging out because, you know, when you load into an iPad, it's not like you switch screens or whatever. And yeah, so you got to design something that's good for a whole bunch of situations, because that's when you're going to get the most bang for your buck. So yeah, that's the second thing, flexibility. You want to make sure that you think through all of the possible situations that you could go through. And once you've done that, you can basically account for all users that would be using it. So it's like, is it just people that are using the phone going to be using it? Is it people going to be using it on the tablet? Or are they going to be using it mainly on the desktop? So, you know, a lot of web applications, you know, they usually, even some old websites, they kind of, if they're on mobile, they just redirect it to like saying, oh, this is not supported or whatever, which is really bad because it's actually really not hard to get that done. But yeah, that's something you should work through. If anybody has any questions, make sure you leave it in the chat below. So the next thing that I want to just kind of talk about is a big point, and it's familiarity. So basically, when someone goes to a website, there's certain things that, you know, you see every single time that you go to a website. So like, for example, if you're on, if you go to most websites and you go to the navigation bar, you have that little hamburger icon that shows up. And I'm trying to think of a lot of sites have them implemented, but basically it shrinks the whole menu into this little, when you're on the mobile device, it shrinks it into this little menu that you have like 3 dashes, and then you can click it and you can see all the things in the navigation. Now, because it's used so popularly, used so much, people tend to go to that for navigation, and that's the point of familiarity. People love to see simple and familiar things. So, for example, you don't want to basically confuse the user when they're going to do something. So, for example, if you wanted to direct your users to your social media, you would put social media icons that directly relate to your social media page. So if you had a Facebook logo, you could have a Twitter logo, you could have an Instagram logo, you could have a SoundCloud logo. There's so many, Google Plus, a YouTube, etc., etc., etc. And basically you click on the logo and it'll take you to the Facebook page. And basically that'll allow people to have, you know, an immediate click in their mind, like, oh, if I want to see their Facebook page, I should go here. If I want to go click on their Twitter page, it should go there. And there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do that are subtle that make the user experience a lot better because they intuitively know what to do with your application, or know how to navigate your website, which is what you want. And a lot of people don't talk about this because a lot of people just assume that every website does this, but these are the best practices and these are the basic principles to get started. So another example of this is when you're going onto, let's say, a website and you do some sort of call to action. Now, if you don't know what a call to action is, it's basically like a link or a button or a phrase that tells the user to do something when they come to your website. And that's like, for example, if we were to go to Spotify's website, if I remember correctly. They have on their website a call to action right in the middle of the screen. Music for everyone. Get Spotify free. Get Spotify premium. That's the first thing you see to your website. That's when people come to your website, you want them to have some sort of action that they can take. It's good to have user interactivity in your website. That's what'll differentiate your website from other websites. So you can go through here. You see that every single thing that they have has some sort of call to action, or you could read more and you go and you click that and they'll take you to different sections. And everywhere it's kind of just a call to action of some sort. And that's what you want to aim for when you work on a website, because it'll help the users kind of figure out what they want. If anybody has any questions, we can go into the chat before I go on to the next question. I'll wait a little bit. One thing to add on to that, actually. So there's common like colors that people use for different stuff. So for example, you know how when you go to a stoplight, you know, red means stop, green means done. It's good to associate colors and all of those different things into your website. If let's say you're displaying notifications to a user, exactly, Tim. Simplicity is key. You want to do red if you have a big notification shows up. So for example, on a project that I have on work, I created some sort of dashboard for people to edit different data that's coming in from the database, and they can basically change it in a very, very simplified manner of explaining it. But basically, if there is an error with the way that they handled it, you'd want to notify the user before they save it. It's like, hey, your thing's not right. You want to make sure that you fix it first, because otherwise it's just not going to submit and you're going to be the system's going to be confused. So you can pop up a red error message, and then once they finally figure it out, it'll turn green. And that's what you want to go for. You want to go for things that are already familiar inside the human head or the brain, and then register those things onto your website, because that'll make the user experience a lot smoother. And yeah, so on to the next thing. I went off a little side tangent there. So the next thing is efficiency. Now this one is kind of up in the air, because efficiency is kind of one of those terms that everybody doesn't, it kind of can be here, it can kind of be there. But basically what you want to do is that you want to make sure that the user can complete whatever task that they want to do in the easiest amount of steps. A great example of this is Amazon's one-click buy. So if you were to go into Amazon, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm sure a lot of people don't know goes on behind the scenes. So let's go to Amazon's website. Here, let me pull this up. So if you were to go to Amazon's website, and let's say we were looking up, I don't know, like, it's Easter. So let's look up Easter Bunny, right? All right, so, look at this little plush Easter Bunny. So, you go here and you can go and you're like, oh my God, look at the little bunny. It's so cute, right? You see the bunny and all this stuff, and you can see how much it costs. You can see if it's in stock, how long it'll take to ship. You see dimensions. Then, the important things, you got to go and check those reviews. Is everybody liking it? Oh, quality control. Oh, that's not good. Oh God. Oh God. You could go do this. And then if you want to buy it, just add it to your cart and you go do that. But what they don't tell you is a whole bunch of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. If we were to go back, you see this rating here. This item is basically sold by a whole bunch of different other suppliers, right? And a whole bunch of different people can sell this, right? On this product, there are, I think there's 21, how many? It doesn't even say. Where is it? I'm pretty sure there's like 21 different suppliers for this product. Now, the item that shows up on here gets what they call the buy box, and you can read about this on Amazon's page. But basically, when you click one-click buy, or you have to sign in to turn on one-click ordering, you just hit buy there. what it does is it finds the item that has Amazon Prime, has the best reviews, and has the most, usually the most amount of sales, and it factors all of that in some type of algorithm and chooses that for you. Now, because you don't want to go through all of these different products, see what the differences is, see what everybody said about it, so Amazon will go ahead and make that easy for you. That's a great example of a website or a web application that made something that was complicated, took something that was complicated, and made it simple for the user. All right? And basically, there's nothing wrong with designing complicated software or designing complicated websites or web applications that you want it to do so much stuff. But basically, every time a user takes an action, you want it to be as simple as possible for that user to do what they want to do. And you see how I keep coming back to this word, simple. That's how the humans work. They want the most out of the least amount of effort. That's how everybody wants to do it. So make sure you apply that for all of your next websites and your website designs. And I'm going to be doing a shortened video on this where I cover it in more of a funny way in a later video. I just wanted to go over this and basically give my opinion on this before I go into like a video about it. Does anybody have any questions on that? I'll wait a little bit. Okay. I'll wait a little bit more. I know it's my first live stream and it's on Easter, so I don't expect a whole bunch of people to like come in and like ask questions and stuff. But you know, the first one is always the scariest one. I was over here thinking like, oh, should I do this? Should I do this? And I'm glad I did. So the last thing that you should think about on your website is consistency and structure. Now, basically, consistency goes back to that familiarity thing that we talked about before. You want things to look the same way on their website. Now, I've had a couple of people email me with their portfolios and ask them like, oh, Malik, what do you think I should do for my website? What's wrong with it? What could I do that's better? And something that I've noticed is that they'll have like a different, sometimes even overall theme for a website. And that's not good. You want someone to be familiar with everything. You want it, like, I keep going back to the word simple, but it really is, you got to make everything simple. You want to have structure to how everything is going to look. You got to have a standardization for how everything is going to go. And basically, structure makes everything more like approachable. Like think about it. Would you rather go to a McDonald's where, you know, there was like 2 workers, it didn't look like they cared about their job, you know, they'll go and they look dirty, you know, they don't have like some sort of like there's no communication going on, there's people yelling at each other, you know, there was a fight in the McDonald's earlier? Or would you rather go to a McDonald's where, you know, everybody's really nice, you know, you can tell that there's a lot of communication going on, you see that things are moving quickly, maybe there's a long line already, maybe you see like a whole bunch of people eating there, you see that the floors are clean, the tables are clean, there's somebody that's actively going around and cleaning everything, and basically you would be much more likely to go to that McDonald's that was in the ladder. So basically, you gotta make sure that everything is not too overwhelming, not too messy, there's not too much going on, because you don't want to confuse the user. You want it to be very simple on what they're gonna have to do. So like, for example, if I was to go to my website again, or actually not my website, let's think. Let's say we go to, I'm trying to think. What's a good example of a website? I'll just do mine. Keep it simple, right? I hate to just show mine off, but you know, you go onto my website. It shows everything about me. They can go, if I'm a recruiter, I made this website thinking who my target audience was and what they would want to expect, and yeah, so they come to my website. If they wanted to check out my resume, they can click this middle one. Notice how it's in the middle because a recruiter would want to know about your resume. You go into your resume and you have all this different stuff, blah 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 blah, of all the stuff that I've worked on, and then you have all of my different social medias here. So I should actually add my a YouTube one here. Actually, I haven't thought about that. I'll do that later. So then you can go on and you can see all the different projects that I have. So I guess, like, for example, this is one of the projects that I worked on when I was in college, and you can go and you can see an image of the website. There's a little button where you can go and you can click to see a live version of the site, blah 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 blah. This was a site that I made for my friend Dan, who I'm going to actually be doing a podcast with later. And basically, you can go and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool, blah blah blah, that's that, and basically, yeah, you go through that, and then you can go and you can, if they liked what they saw, if they thought my projects were interesting, they can go and they can go see some of some information, some fun facts about myself. So you can go and you can see that, I love jamming out, I love doing this, I love doing that. This is happening because of that. This is supposed to stick. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of how my website would kind of flow. And you see how I have that little bug there. So, I've got some stuff to fix too. Like, nobody's perfect. So yeah. So how do you feel about using design frameworks like material design? That's the approach we're taking at work right now. Our goal is to be the TurboTax of the insurance industry. So I feel if you're talking about material UI, material UI is really, really, really good. Because basically it uses, for people that don't know what material is, it basically has it's I guess a library of like React components. And if you don't know what a component is, it's kind of like a chunk of code that describes a piece of your website. So like if we were to break like this YouTube live streaming dashboard into components, you can literally see you have, your analytics and your stream health, blah, 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 blah. You have your encoder setup. That's a different component. You have your video or live stream description as a different component. You have your live streaming checklist. That's a different component, blah, 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 blah. You have your creator studio, like navigation as another component. You'd have your navigation bar as a component. And basically you could insert these components here and here and which and where. And what material UI is, which is what Tim is talking about, brings it up. It allows you to create a really good, a pretty much universal standardization, because it's used by a lot of people that use React to kind of get started on your website or on your web application. And yeah, I think material design is actually really, really good. But I do not recommend you learn it until you learn React.js and, have a good understanding of JavaScript, because it can get very, very overwhelming. I hope that answers your question, Tim. Oh yeah, I know it works well with Angular, but at my job, okay, so I guess I'm a little bit biased, because I use React at work and I use React in a lot of my projects, and Angular 2 kind of gave me a hard time when I was first picking it up, so I'm a little bit biased with that. But I know it's definitely used with Angular. I know it's used with Ember, and I know it's used with Backbone, for all those different web frameworks. So definitely a good thing. Does anybody have any other questions? Well, I wanted to try and keep this live stream under 30 minutes. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in for my first live stream. This was fun. Oh, wait, I see a question. Can I make a full online store in React, Redux, and Firebase? Yes, you can. So I am assuming you know what each one of those does. So I guess I'll break it down, because questions like this are so finicky, because you can make there's so many frameworks, so many different like applications you can use out there. You can pretty much make an application out of almost everything. It just depends on what you need. So if this is going to be some sort of huge online store, basically something that's similar to like a Shopify application. If you don't know what Shopify, it's basically a e-commerce, a website where you can set up your own online store. If you're trying to make something similar to that, then React and Redux would be really good for it. So React. So if you don't know what Redux is, basically Redux is it's a flow for how your web application will handle your data. So like for example, in a normal React application, you have all of these different components, right? And you have all of the different data that's going in between and going forth and back from your state or your code from each component. And you have all the data stored in what's called a state, right? And this state has all the information that your component will need. And you can have state and you can pass that into a property if you're passing it to a subcomponent or blah, 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 blah. I don't want to get too much into it. What a Redux does, basically, it takes your data flow and basically simplifies it. So you take it and you have these things called reducers, which is why it's called Redux. And it takes your flow of data and it passes. It's hard to kind of explain without having like some sort of graphical thing behind it. Let me see if I can find an example. There was this great example I found on the internet. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Let's see. You made a few applications in React, Redux, plus Firebase, like Spotify and Messenger, but I need to make some money, and I will make an online store from business in my city. Oh, well, yeah, you can definitely do it. I know that for a fact. I'm just trying to figure out how to explain reducers in the easiest way. Maybe I'll make a video about this, because after you learn React, Redux, and basically everything past React is kind of like starts getting advanced, starts getting a little bit complicated. So maybe I should make some videos about how I could break that down in a way that's, more understandable to like people that are kind of new to it. That's a good idea. I'm gonna borrow that. Hey, log on, John. What's going on, bro? What's going on? Ooh, I think this is it. Here we go. Where'd the diagram go? I saw it. Okay, here. This is what this is perfect. This is perfect. How do I here. All right. Boom. No. Please. How do I here. I'll do this. This is perfect. All right. So if you don't know what Redux is, this is kind of how it works. All right. So you have your view. This is what the user sees, right? And every time they take an action, it goes into this some sort of dispatcher. And the dispatcher is kind of like this middleman that handles all of the data for your application. So like, let's say you have some sort of REST API that you want to pull up. So for example, for you, Marcin Miller, you could have an API that has all of the different items that you would have in your store, or you could create an API that would allow you to add an item to your store, right? And basically, you can send data to the API and some sort of API that you'd set up, and you would send it back. And then once you do that, you would send it into this reducer. And what this reducer does is that it simplifies it and allows you to kind of break it down into a point where it's a usable item for the state. And I don't want to go too into it because it can get really complicated really fast, and I want to save that for another video. But basically it breaks it down and simplifies it to a point where you can use it into your state, because it could be a whole bunch of data that's coming down, and sometimes you just only want the certain information from it. So it comes down and it goes through a reducer, and it comes back and goes back into your state, which is then applied to your view. And your state can have components that can, go through the reducer as well. So that's kind of how it works. Can't stay, but love your web videos. Keep it up. Look forward to seeing more. Burt King, thank you so much. But yeah, that's kind of how Redux works. Firebase ties into that because it's kind of like, how do I even describe it? Like, it's like an awesome tool. I've used it at a couple of hackathons, but basically it allows you to create like really, for people that don't know what it is, it allows you to create a whole bunch very powerful web applications very easily. I've used it to create this web application that I actually came in second place at a hackathon for. Fun fact. And basically allows you to pull into authentication. It's really good for like iOS development and Android development, because sometimes setting up a server to handle like user authentication, or like if you're trying to do like store some type of data about a user, it can kind of get a little complicated for iOS because there's not really, MySQL or, MongoDB or NoSQL, all those different databases. So the more difficult part for you is design than the store. Yeah, I know. I agree with that. I can understand that. I actually, when I'm at work, I tend to get frustrated very often about trying to figure out how I can make my code more modular so that my stores and my state is like as simple as possible, because that's the whole thing. Because in the whole React process, your state can get so cluttered with all of this irrelevant information that you just don't need, and that's where reducers come in. So just so everybody knows. But yeah. Anyways, that's it. I'm going to be doing a live stream a week, and I'm going to be releasing a video either every week or every 2 weeks. It kind of depends on work. I'm going to be releasing a podcast later today, and I'm going to be doing a video with my friend, a fellow YouTuber, Aaron in Beta. If you don't know who he is, you should check him out. I'm going to be releasing a video with him. I'm not going to say what yet. You'll have to check it out. If you haven't checked it out, just look up Aaron in Beta, literally Aaron in Beta. And I'm going to be doing a podcast with my friend Dan Gallant. So if there is no further questions, thank you guys for tuning in. If you don't already, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, I do live stories about what I'm doing at work, what I'm going through every day, and all that stuff. And on Twitter, I usually post updates on when I'm going to be live streaming. So if you want to know that, definitely a good place to get updates on everything that's going on with YouTube. And then my Facebook channel is kind of like everything that's with my life. Plus, I'm going to be posting updates. Plus, I'm going to be posting progress pictures. Also, in my Instagram, I'm going to be posting bloopers. So if you're interested in what goes into making my Failfish comedic videos that I put on YouTube, make sure you go check it out. Thank you, everybody, for checking in. It's been awesome. This is my first live stream. I look forward to doing this in the future. If you have any other suggestions on ideas, let me know. I'm gonna shut it down for now. But take care, everybody.